So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September edition of the Cancer Prevention and Wellness Series. This is brought to you by the Cancer Survivors Park and the Cancer Survivors Park Alliance. Tonight, we're going to emphasize and talk about the healing powers of nature, as well as the wellness preservation powers of nature. As we have in this country become more urbanized. Some cities have done a better job of maintaining green space, some have not, but it's still the case that we have spent in the last decades more and more time indoors, 80 to 90% of the time indoors. Maybe a good aspect of the pandemic is that we were so needy of social distancing and got out to nature that maybe we're refinding that again. So we have a couple of very dynamic programs to introduce you to, and a couple of, or a number of dynamo leaders and founders of these programs. So we'll introduce those to you in a minute. Just a couple of housekeeping. As you heard, Laura Coleman does record all these, and all of the previous sessions have been archived and are available at the Cancer Survivors Park website. So that's cancersurvivorspark, all one word, .org. And you all are muted, but the chat room is active, and Melissa Aguilar, our fantastic community outreach person for the Center for Integrative Oncology and Survivorship, will be monitoring the chat room. So feel free to ask any questions of this group. So we'll get started, and want to introduce you to these ladies. We have a program called Casting for Recovery, and the leader of the local organization is Cheryl Miller. Cheryl, you want to say hi? Just
hello.
Hi.
Hello, everybody.
And then we have Wind River Cancer Wellness Retreats and Conferences, and their founder, Shannon Carney, and the nutritional specialist, Cheryl Lacroix, there too. So before we get started on them describing their programs, I just want to go ahead and ask, what was the road that got you to this place in helping cancer patients, cancer survivors, and utilizing nature to do so. Carol, you want to start off?
Oh, absolutely. Again, my name is Cheryl Miller, and I'm the program coordinator for Casting for Recovery Carolinas. My journey in support of breast cancer began in the mid-90s with attending Susan G. Komen events. I never did the 3-day 60-mile, but I did back in those days as a couple 10Ks and half marathons. And then I evolved to Avon Walks for breast cancer, supporting a friend whose mother had recently died from breast cancer. And I did 5 walks in the Rocky Mountains, Chicago, New York, and Charlotte. And then I was led to Casting for Recovery in the early 2000s in some support of the Colorado and Wyoming program, and now lead the retreat for the Carolinas.
And you had been in the Rocky Mountains. What brought you to North Carolina?
My husband and I had visited here a number of times, friends that lived on
South Carolina, I guess. Right?
Yeah, South Carolina, but they're close. Our program's Carolinas, so I don't differentiate. My husband and I, when we retired in 2015, decided to move to the Southeast. We had not spent a lot of time here, fell in love with Lake Hartwell, and moved here in 2015, much to the surprise of friends in the West that said South Carolina. And
right.
We said, yes.
Those are hills, those aren't mountains.
That's true.
Right. And Shannon, how did you get to where you are? Am I muted?
I can hear you.
I think I'm back on. Sorry. I muted it, and that turned out to turn it off permanently. So
Yeah,
anyway,
sometimes if you mute, then Laura Caroline has to let you. Not Laura Caroline. Laura Coleman has to let you back in. So
I won't do that again, Lauren.
okay, don't touch any buttons.
Thank you, Jeff, for this opportunity. I am an 18-year breast cancer survivor myself, and I was in my late 30s. Did not expect cancer to come my way, not that many of us do. I was very much attached to outdoor activities when I was not working. But when cancer hit, it hit hard. And the chemotherapy treatments were extremely brutal on my body. I would spend, multiple days in the hospital following each treatment. And we had one of those 3-week cycles, and my partner, Dave, at the end of the 3 weeks, I would usually have about 3 good days. And I know some of you can really relate to this. And we would always find a way to go up into the North Carolina mountains, go for a bike ride, go do a little camping. Even though my energy wasn't great, it was the best days that I had. And every time we got back into nature, I could feel my entire body, my immune system, my energy, my spirit actually react, respond, and improve exponentially just from spending a night in the woods. And that was a really pivotal reminder to us when we went back to our jobs and cubicles and all that sort of thing. And eventually it led us to realizing after about a couple of years that we didn't do very well in cities. So we decided we would move to the country. We live just over the North-South Carolina border near Tryon. And we realized the way we like to call it, we like to live in nature and visit cities. And that was really the beginning of our beginning. And then we ended up, we'll tell you more about it, but we have a really magical property that we realized we could share it with people, and we wanted to share it with other cancer survivors of all types of cancer. And that was the beginning of the beginning for us.
So is Dave just along for the ride? I know he's more than that, but does he have a story as well, or is he just really supportive of your efforts?
A little bit of both, like any good partner. I do tend to be the person who gets on the camera. I'm honored and thrilled to now have Cheryl Lacroix, who you'll get to meet in a minute as well, who splits our Zoom times and everything else these days. But no, Dave has a tremendous background. He used to be a percussionist in a band. He's actually an environmental nuclear engineer by background. So he loves, even though he was an engineer for a power company, he worked in their environmental group. So he was always out in the mud and counting fish and doing other things that involve being in nature. So now that we are full-time in nature, he has created some incredible little spots of sanctuary, places for hammocks and chairs and people to sit by the water and really take in the nature in a very calm and soothing environment. It feels like, somebody described it one time, they said, this is like organized chaos.
Yeah.
So
that's when the weather's good.
Yeah, it feels very natural to be in our gardens and on our pathways. So there's enough structure that you don't feel lost in the woods, but you're definitely out in the woods. And he is absolutely 100% responsible for that gift.
That's awesome. We love percussionists. Do you do any drumming up there in the woods?
We do. We both have some music in our background. We do a lot with music and art, and anything that is right brain, anything that stimulates that creative side of our brain. And that can even be meditating down by the creek. He might even grab a bowl of potatoes, and he treats it kind of like a Zen moment and meditation. And he's been known to sit there peeling the potatoes by the creek. And then the next thing I know, he's picked up some sticks and he's drumming on a rock. So I never know what I'm going to get.
Right. And Shannon, why don't you introduce Cheryl? You know her better than anybody else. I feel like I've got a ghost picture here. I'm going to put down the shades because I think the sun's coming through too much. So just go ahead and tell us what you know about Cheryl, and then she can do the rest.
I'm going to let her say most of it, but I will tell you that if you ever, as a fellow survivor, want to talk with a survivor who really understands what it means to not be in love with your body anymore, because it's physically, mentally, spiritually kind of checked out on you, Cheryl is your go-to girl. She's got some incredible tools in her little toolbox. I call her my guru sometimes, but what she's a guru in changes on a day-to-day basis. So Cheryl, take it away.
So I'm Cheryl Lacroix, and I'm a breast cancer survivor diagnosed in 2011. And in the last 10 years, nature has transformed my life and become part of my life's work. So I had the great privilege in the very beginning, like 3 months in, no hair, third treatment, to actually attend Wind River and have some of that healing time in nature. And the most interesting thing that happened when I was diagnosed, and right at that time, I kind of got an insatiable desire to be in the garden. I didn't have a garden when I was first diagnosed. And I, prior to that, was a real girly girl that, wore high heels and went to events and parties. And I was in the art industry. And but somehow I started getting attracted to the dirt, and I started my first garden that grew to over the years to 2 or 3 gardens, to now I have the majority of my land is actually farmed. Very little, everything is edible landscape. And that desire to be in nature has grown and become my life's work. And so now I have a large organic garden that feeds our family and supports programs with Wind River, and gives me an opportunity to step into a happy place right outside my door when I need it and when it calls.
And we've had a lecture in this series about gardening and obviously the plant-based whole food diet. I looked at your bio, and when you developed breast cancer, I mean, you already were pretty healthy. One would think, not healthier than the average bear. And you took it another step. I mean, you didn't get disappointed that woe is me. You just took it to another level. What else can I do?
Absolutely.
And this diet was a big part of that. So that's great. So everybody's gotten here in a different way, but we're all together. And this is just something where we want to introduce these programs. And Carol, why don't you go ahead and share your slides? And I can tell you, having done some fly fishing, and certainly not professionally, it's hard. And I think it's probably harder for guys because we're trying to muscle it. And I think it has been told to me that women make better fly fishermen than men do. But it's interesting how the program developed and how it's kind of grown across the nation. So you can kind of go in and elaborate more into that.
All right. Well, hopefully when I click on this, it'll pop up.
Well, Melissa's there, it will.
Well, let's see. She said, click on the PowerPoint. There it is. What all, can you all see that?
Not yet.
All right. Well,
You got to hold your mouth right.
okay. Right. Go down there, the green button.
And again, while we're getting this up, just remind your other people in your life that this is going to be recorded, so it's available for viewing at your leisure later on. So looks great.
All right, you got it? Well, good. Well, I will keep this brief because I think there's lots of great dialogue that we can have. But, let me start with thank you. Thank you, Jeff and Laura Coleman and Melissa, for the opportunity to be here and to talk about something that is so near and dear to my heart. It's just an amazing program. And there's so many metaphorical things about nature and fly fishing that just play into what we do. But let me talk about it just quickly. So you might say, what is Casting for Recovery? And we provide nationwide healing outdoor retreats across the country and actually internationally in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, United Kingdom, Ireland, Italy, and a few more. And these retreats are held and they're open to any woman at any stage in their breast cancer treatment journey and at no cost to them. And it takes women and brings them together in this incredible outdoor environment, in running water and in just beautiful settings, and brings along peer support, breast cancer education, and just the amazing wonder of fly fishing. This is our 25th year. I mean, we are so excited and so grateful that we've been able to do this for 25 years. We have served over 10,000 women. We began in 1996 in Manchester, Vermont, in an interesting way. There was a breast reconstructive surgeon who went out with a professional fly fishing angler. And as they were out there fishing, and the rhythmic motion of casting reminded this surgeon of physical therapy exercises that women do post-surgery and post-radiation. And so it began. This year, we will hold 46 retreats and we will serve over 700 women. And all this effort is supported by 1,800 plus volunteers. And those volunteers, and I emphasize the word volunteer, include medical professionals, professional fly fishing instructors that come together and make this unique opportunity available for women across the country. And women that come to these retreats describe it as giving themselves renewed energy, helping them connect with nature, connect with other women. Some of the statistics of the retreats that we've had and these 10,000 women that we've served, over 70% of those women have never been involved in a peer support group. I was very surprised at that. 100% of the women that attend our retreats have indicated that they felt a greater connection to nature and that they recommended this program. So there's a lot about it to talk about, and I think maybe we'll get a chance to do that a little bit more, but I'd really like to just end very quickly with a video that I think will touch your hearts and lift your spirits. Okay, there we go. There is no video.
There is. Be confident.
There we go.
Gently in the water, gently in the water. Make sure he kind of wakes him up. Okay, let him go.
That is awesome. Oh my gosh. Casting for Recovery rocks!
Casting for.
Sorry, what happened?
It wasn't. Brief pause because we are gonna fix the.
I feel very confident this is going to happen.
It's going to work.
Yeah.
And it'll be worth it. I know it will.
Yes.
I generally follow instructions pretty well. I'm not sure what happened.
Gently in the water, gently in the water. Make sure he kind of wakes him up. Okay, let him go.
That is awesome. Oh my gosh. Casting for Recovery rocks!
Casting for Recovery started over 20 years ago with 2 women fishing. The idea was simple: to take women with breast cancer out of a clinical setting and teach them to fly fish. CFR started with one retreat in 1996 and a small but mighty group of women that were passionate about the idea of connecting women with breast cancer to nature. We now serve women across the United States with over 50 retreats, and that small group of volunteers has grown to 1,800 strong. We've taught over 10,000 women to fly fish, cast more lines than we could count, and given way more than 10,000 hugs.
Ladies are just so genuine. So I couldn't replace it for nothing in the world, and everybody needs this one opportunity.
Well, the ladies are terrific. You know, we all have kindred spirits, so we shared so many stories and laughed and cried a lot. And I think the crying was very healthy. It was great. It really was.
There's still so much more to do. Breast cancer impacts all of our families and communities. And sadly, for each woman we serve at CFR, we are turning 3 women away. We say it's about the fishing, but really, it's about so much more.
It's just us with nature as one, and we're not even thinking about any illnesses that we had or went through.
Just being in nature, it's just so beautiful and relaxing and freeing.
Women in the US face a 1 in 8 lifetime risk of developing breast cancer. 250,000 women are diagnosed with breast cancer each year in the United States alone. You know these women. They're our mothers, sisters, wives, partners, and friends.
Awesome. The best experience. I feel that I'm free, that I can fly, I can swim like a fish. Incredible. Oh, yeah. Please go back. I'm sorry, but I have to go back.
Catch the power of nature. castingforrecovery.org.
Really well done. Yeah.
Doesn't that just make you smile?
Yeah, and it's clear that the fish aren't scared away by screaming.
You know, they might be.
But I thought the sentiment that the crying was very healing too.
15 years ago, the innovative idea for casting.
So Shannon, why don't you go ahead and talk about Winding River, and then we'll kind of go into the living room. And I know we may have 1 or 2 questions in the chat room, but we'll let Melissa look at those, and I will call on her once you get finished.
Thank you, Jeff. So Wind River is a concept, and it's a concept centered around a sense of community and a sense of heart. But at its core, nature was one of the #1 things that Dave and I realized, that everybody needs more time in nature. And those of us that are dealing with health challenges, we need it exponentially more. And so 15 years ago, we started opening up our home and our property to small groups of people that would come together, survivors, mostly men and women in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, a lot dealing with more advanced cancers and reoccurrences. And we basically, 4 days in the woods, no cost to them. We said, come and be your most authentic self. Come explore yoga, Tai Chi, nutrition, healing arts, drumming, like we said, bonfires, but mostly very similar to the Casting for Recovery model of come into nature, learn how to breathe again, forget about the hospital situations, and laugh and let loose and find your inner wonderness, your little kid self. And since that time, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the environment we're in right now, we being Cheryl, tremendous amount of that also being Cheryl now, is we've created a whole array of programs, opportunities for people to like get out of their They can still do it from home. Now we're doing Zoom programs in cooking and nutrition, in healing arts, in Tai Chi, in stress reduction, stress busters. We've got a couple of workshops coming up that are going to talk about sleep and boundaries, setting boundaries, that is. But at our core, we always encourage you to get out into nature. We always encourage you to go out and find that magic little bug that's on a tree, that what we call joy spotting. Take a walk in nature for 15, 20 minutes. And what are 10 things that you would not have otherwise noticed if you were walking and still looking at your screen, talking on the phone? Nature for us is an equalizer, and we encourage people to go out and literally hug trees. I have people hug trees all the time, even if it's just taking a hand and placing it on the tree and experiencing tree. It's something that we forget. There's a concept called grounding. If you're not familiar with it, go ahead and look it up, but it's pretty straightforward. When was the last time you actually took your shoes off, put your feet into the earth, into the dirt, onto the grass, on a stone, and just felt that in Tai Chi, they have a concept called the bubbling well, and it's literally trying to feel Mother's Earth coming up through your feet, up into your legs, and ultimately up into your heart. So I go around a lot of different circles, and I'm trying to give you guys a lot of ideas because I've been there. I've been that survivor that feels overwhelmed. And what nature means finding trees, it means finding flowers, it means finding plant life. Going out into nature will actually boost your immune system and lower your what's called cortisol levels. I know the doc knows a lot about that, but for the rest of us, it's our stress response. And when you're in nature, those stress responses go way down, and they allow you to make better decisions and feel a little more clear. So we have an array of retreats and outreach and different ways for people to connect and talk to each other and be authentic, but laugh. And nature is kind of at its core. We encourage people to get messy, get dirt on your hands. And that's kind of at our core. Cheryl, what did I miss?
Do you have showers?
Once a week we take showers. So
You know,
I will say, Jeff, that's a great reminder. When Dave and I dreamed up Wind River as a concept, we were actually backpacking on a 6-day trip in the Wind River mountain range, which is out in Wyoming.
Yeah.
I know Carol is very familiar with that area as well. And we literally came out of the mountains after 6 days of what we call nirvana. And we said, what if we brought people backpacking, but without the backpack? So you get a bed, you get real toilets, you don't have to use a shovel, and you get showers.
Right. And Cheryl, I guess on these retreats, I mean, you have indoor plumbing, obviously. We've come to that conclusion and reassured a bunch of our guests. But what do we eat? What do we eat while we're on these retreats? How long are we out there and that sort of thing?
So at our typical in-person retreats, and it's been about 1.5 years since we've done them in person. Yeah, we have transitioned to virtual retreats where we've actually been able to do some of the very same things, and capture the essence of being in nature, even though we're sitting around the screen. So we're really creative in trying to keep that element, even though we may not physically be in the same space. But I personally plan all of the meals, and even when we do virtual retreats, we have meals together via Zoom, and they are plant-based. When we're together, we primarily prepare vegetarian meals, but I personally share how it is that you can live a plant-based life. What does that mean? So we have Zoom classes, we have tutorials, and one-on-one coaching with me to just figure out how to do that without meat, for 3 days. I mean, 3 times a day, the standard American diet. is meat for breakfast, meat for lunch, meat for dinner, you know, and maybe a veggie in there somewhere, or more likely it's like between bread or, so a lot of our health can come from what we feed ourselves, and coming from the garden and from plants. There's a lot of healing there, and that's what we teach.
That's great. Melissa, do you have some questions from the chat room? I don't know if you're trying to get on, but we're not hearing you if you are.
There aren't any questions right now, I don't think.
Okay, I thought I saw some in the numbers there. So when we talk about lifestyle medicine, and you know, there's a increasingly scientific background to lifestyle medicine, and a number of us are, you know, board certified in lifestyle medicine now. We sometimes talk about dosing. And so with regard to exercise, when you're starting out with exercise, we're not backpacking mountains or running marathons, but we ask that the dose that they start out with is some fairly aggressive walking. We tell them they can talk, but maybe they can't sing because they're short of breath. And we estimate that they get some benefit from doing that about 150 minutes a week. Is there a dose of nature that is recommended? I suspect a lot of us are underdosed, but I don't think you can overdose on nature. Maybe if you're lost, you can. But is there something we recommend to the normal person as far as nature exposure? Any of you can chime in.
I can't stand it. I have to answer this one.
Okay.
What I will tell you from a scientific standpoint is that even an hour of being in deep in the woods, and if you're in the Greenville area, for example, just right up the mountain, you could go to Paris Mountain and be by that creek, that beautiful creek down at the bottom, and stroll along the creek. If you were to spend an hour in nature, there have been some studies that will show that will have a residual effect on what's called your killer T cells, which is something very important to helping to kill cancer. And that residual effect can actually last for a couple of days. So they've done further studies where somebody goes into the woods for 2 or 3 days, similar to what Carol and I and Cheryl help promote for people. And those effects, where you're literally in nature for a couple of days, that can last up to 6 weeks. So I think Jeff is absolutely correct that you can't get enough of this, especially when you're in treatments. So one of the things that I oftentimes encourage survivors who are in active treatments to look at their week and sort of parcel out of the number of hours, depends on if they're working or not, but going through a cancer journey is very oftentimes a 40-hour-a-week job.
Yeah.
Separate from sleep, and that should not all be medical appointments. And so every day I encourage people to get at least an hour, if not 2 hours a day, when they're in treatments, maybe 4 or 5 days a week, where they are doing something really focused on their wellness and their mental and or their spiritual balance and well-being. So if you took walks in a park, I understand in Greenville, there's a fabulous new cancer park.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no, nature is free. This is the best medicine in the world. And if it's going to lower my stress level, it's going to boost my immune system, and it's going to help produce these killer T cells that help kill cancer cells. Why would I not do that in addition to going and getting my chemotherapy and my radiation and all the other things that I have to do? So that's my soapbox. Thank you.
And I suspect that, when we're talking about T cells, I mean, that's a lot of what we're trying to induce with vaccines. And, when you go and you've been in nature and then you go back into nature, it may be a booster. You know, it's the same analogy as a booster for your vaccine. Carol, you know, you're in a river. It can be sunny like the film showed and very, very pretty out. But nature can be harsh as well. I mean, there can be wind, it can be cold, it can be too hot, it can be wet. And Shannon, I'll get back to you because I know you look at that as resilience building. But have you had any bad experiences with your groups as far as, you know, it just didn't work out from a weather standpoint or?
No. Yes, we have. I do want to just quickly add on to what Shannon said. When I think about the experience of nature, myself, when you step into that water and you can feel it just flowing across your feet and at your ankles, and if you're brave, your calves, your knees, your thighs, and you really need to stop there. There's just something that is, there's a release. And I think it just plays into what you said so well, Shannon. The other thing that didn't dawn on me at first, and I've had some of our women tell me, is that when they get the fish and they're holding it, we do some fun things with the fish. They actually hold it up and, you know, they're supposed to kiss it or pretend to kiss it. But when they lean down into the river, if you recall in the video, and they hold that fish and they hold it carefully, those fish are fragile. And then they gently ease it back into the water and they let it go. And then that fish swims off. I mean, it gives me goosebumps to think about those experiences and what they mean to women. Now, back to your question. Yes, the very first retreat that we did here in 2017, the last day, it's a 2.5-day retreat. And so Sunday morning, we go fishing and we have all these professional guides that volunteer their time and very, you know, highly skilled anglers. It was pouring down rain. There was flash flood watches and warnings. And so we weren't going anywhere near anywhere.
No, we don't want to lose anybody.
No. But you know, the spirit of women and people that come together in this event, we very quickly created fish out of Velcro. I mean, had a little Velcro on them. We had Velcro as the fly, and we were casting and catching those fish. And we created some metaphorical things about the fish that the women could relate to. And we were casting through hula hoops. And I remember feeling so bad and apologizing and saying, I'm so sorry that you did not get out on the river. And one woman said to me, oh, this is a great experience. You know, please don't apologize. I wouldn't trade this for the world.
So you adapt. And Shannon, Cheryl, I know, you know, in your retreats, you're out there, you know, it's not going to be pretty all the time for all your retreats. I guess it is now, they're virtual, but you're inside and whatnot. And I'd really like to understand how you're adapting nature to the computer, but how does it work when the elements aren't cooperating?
Well, when the elements aren't cooperating is the perfect time to, there's a wonderful quote by Vivian, and I'm going to forget her last name, but it is, life is not about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about dancing in the rain. And we've had retreats where we've had literally one time a tornado came through and we had to hunker down. We stayed inside more than out. But when we went outside, we were like, it was like the whole cast of characters from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. We all had multicolored rain boots on, you know, muck boots and rainbow colored umbrellas. And literally people were twirling their umbrellas in the rain and singing singing in the rain song and splashing. I mean, when was the last time you purposely jumped into a puddle and let mud come splashing up on you? So to me, the weather is actually the gift. We actually left feeling more revitalized, invigorated, because that weather, that wind, we had 25, 30 mile per hour winds at one point. And when you feel that come up against your face and your whole body, you can't help but feel alive. So It's pretty powerful. In fact, if you'll indulge me, Jeff, what I'd love for people to do right now, Carol and Jeff and Cheryl and Laura as well, take 1 minute. I'm going to walk you through a 30-second guided imagery. And I'm going to take you into nature right now, because saying that out loud, I realize it may not visually feel in your body what you need it to feel like. So if you would all humor me and close your eyes, take a nice soft breath in, lifting your shoulders up slightly to your ears, lift them up, and then loudly exhale. One more breath in. And now loudly release. And with your eyes still closed, I want you to imagine a beautiful September day. And I want you to go down walking on a simple little path that you may have been on before. You're doing this in your head and in your mind. And on this path, you're going to notice the most beautiful maple tree already beginning to change color for the fall. Half of the tree is crimson red, followed by some vibrant orange and little tinges of yellow still left on the edges. I want you to take this tree in, and I want you to notice one simple leaf that falls down towards the earth, twirling and twisting as the breeze goes by. And then gently let your breath raise in. And softly exhale like that falling leaf. And now everybody open your eyes. So I see some smiles of the people that I'm able to see. And so Carol, how did that feel?
Oh, it felt wonderful. Though I started with looking at the beautiful trees that are out here in front of the pavilion, but and the other interesting thing is with the sun streaming through the windows, when I closed my eyes, it was orange anyway. So it made it so much easier to visualize this tree. But I love imagery, and it felt relaxing, and I could just, not that I'm nervous doing this, but there's a certain amount of energy and adrenaline when you do something like this, and I could just feel it let go.
Yeah.
So I offer that gift to everybody. And in fact, we have some free guided imageries that are all nature-based that we did a number of years ago. And they can be downloaded on our website for free, but you can also visit them on Spotify and CD Baby and iTunes, things like that. You can literally, I think you type in Wind River guided imagery or Wind River relaxation. One of those two should pull it up. And they're 10-minute or less mini vacations. So there's one up to a healing waterfall. And that was actually a meditation that I did for myself almost every day when I was in treatments. There's another one, a day at the beach. So Carol and I keep talking about the mountains and rivers, because I think we're kind of water people in that direction. But some people are really strongly tied to the beach. And so, whatever is your nature thing that you really get called to, these are a perfect way to just give your body that same physiological effect, still release the tension and the stress, but you don't have to be physically outside if your schedule doesn't accommodate that right now. So that's just one of the many little kinds of gifts that we like to give people in their imaginary toolbox.
And Cheryl, another thing that's out in nature, and you're growing food out there, along with different elements, there's varmints. And you have to deal with, I guess there's four-legged and ants and all kinds of things that try to eat your crops. Deer and whatnot. There's two-legged varmints out there too, but how do you deal with all that? That's a very tough environment to grow stuff.
I am an organic gardener, and so I have spent many of these last 10 years learning how to coexist with nature in order to best benefit the food that I want to grow. So I look at non-damaging ways to exist within the world of varmints. One of the things that I do is companion planting. so in the very beginning, planted a huge grapevine simply for the purpose of attracting the beetles that I didn't want to eat the food that I was producing. Now the grapes are wonderful. I don't ever, I have these two big, beautiful grapevines, but beetles are all over them. And that's, it's kind of how we exist together. I don't use any pesticides or any additional chemicals on my food that I grow. And deer have been an issue before. And I put up just this last year, a fence of, believe it or not, fishing line. So it has multiple purposes.
You guys are synergistic right here. Yeah.
Yeah. So fishing line is enough. And I went 5 high. It's enough for the deer to kind of brush against. And when it, it doesn't have a peripheral vision. And so then it kind of goes away. So I haven't had any deer issues this year, and beautiful crops. So yeah, definitely work in a symbiotic relationship with nature. And it's part of what I teach as well through Slow Foods Organization and through some of the cooking classes that I do, because, now I will be very honest. I picked a big bunch of basil to take to a program a couple of days ago. And I'm holding this basil and it was wonderful. It's like huge. And this spider jumped out.
Right.
And it was like the spider was almost the size of my hand, and I threw the basil and I smashed the spider. So there are times that nature and the critters can exist with me, but for the most part, you just learn to, exist together.
You go with the flow, right? So Carol, I know the program nationally, internationally has grown in leaps and bounds, and the figures that you presented as far as how many people you've served. But I know when we were talking before how your applications year over year have grown, but your ability to take all those people has, been limited. And have there been best practices where things can grow as far as the number of participants, or are you really limited as far as that's concerned?
The program was developed to generally serve 14 women. When you think about, for example, the hands-on activity involved in learning to tie on flies and learning to cast. So there's a very unique experience there. Some of the programs are expanding, 16, I think one does 18. But for us, our goal is to do 2 a year so that we can double what we're doing, maybe increase the numbers slightly. I think it'll let us reach more women without getting so large that we then dilute what we believe we bring to these groups.
The experience, right?
The experience, yes.
And yours is confined to breast cancer survivors, and a lot because of the physical therapy that they're getting.
Yeah, that's how it started. I mean, with that reconstructive surgeon, and then it just evolved into very specifically women with breast cancer, and that motion and the fishing, and then the program evolved. I was asked one time, was it only women? And we said, when women start to talk very personally about surgery and reconstruction and scarring and mastectomies and things like that, we've just discovered it's really better to keep it amongst the women. And we have a medical doctor that will be there and a psychosocial analyst, and they just have a chance to share things that they don't have any other venue that they can do that. And it's very, very powerful.
Well, there's a significant need, and just kind of quote the number of applications you've gotten over the time that you've been doing it.
So I think there's just something magical about the Carolinas, but we, for the last 3 years, have had more applicants here than anywhere in the country.
Unbelievable.
In 2019, we had 56. We could only take 14. In 2020, we had 66, I think, and this year we had 84. And so we're so passionate about it, and our alumni and our staff have done a great job of messaging and sharing the story. So our effort now is we're going to do at least 2, and if it grows big enough, we'll figure out how to do more.
That's awesome. And Shannon, if you could just give us the logistics of how this works, how they contact you, and then in the non-COVID era, what does it look like over the days that you're there?
Yeah, and I'm going to focus on the COVID era only because I want to make sure folks over the next couple of months that might be popping in on this, that they know that there are opportunities for them right now. And the easy thing is we have a website. It's called Wind River Services with an S at the end, .org. And thank you, Catherine, for pointing that out in some of the comments. And there's a little contact us button, and you answer 4 questions, and Cheryl or myself, we will get back to you very quickly. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with us. We have a newsletter every month, and we push out lots of different events. I'll give you an example, and a lot of them do center around nature. So we're in September. We have a handful of days this month, and we'll have some more next month in October, where we will open up. This is our home. This is actually Dave's in my home. So we will open up the property to a handful of people at any given point because of COVID, but for what we call forest bathing. So we want you to come out and have kind of a self-guided day where, or a couple of hours where you can just sit by the creek or walk by the trails or be at the hammock or make a bonfire, or we'll help you make a bonfire. If you're into art, we'll pull out some paints and some arts and things. Those are, we also have an online, we have online cooking classes with Cheryl most months. We are happy to provide you with a handful of one-on-one cooking coaching kinds of conversations with Cheryl at any given point when you're feeling like I'm ready to change my eating behavior and my patterns, and I want to learn a little bit more, just incremental changes. We will have some retreats this fall, again, virtual. I'm really excited. Cheryl and I are putting forward one that's all about using your creative and right side of the brain. So it's getting right with your brain in 21 days. So in the month of November, you would be getting an email, a self-paced email every day. And every week we'll have a handful of interactive workshops. And we even send out some supplies and resources to sort of go along with some of the activities and things that we are presenting. So that's kind of the current world. We have some online, we have a YouTube channel with free short Tai Chi videos and meditations. And then in the real world, when we all get to be grown-ups again and visit, those same newsletters that we push out would provide you with notifications of retreats that are coming up and an application process and things like that in order to get you going.
So thank you all so much. Melissa, Elsie, are there any questions? I just don't want to leave anybody hanging.
Yeah, we have one comment in the chat box that says our national parks are overcrowded and the state parks close the gates on the weekend because they are full. We're thankful for the city of Greenville for creating public park spaces, but we need more public green spaces, which is a very good point, and really plays to the fact that you guys are filling the void for a lot of people who are missing their time in green spaces.
Yeah, I can tell you, I went up to Acadia and I've been there before up in Maine, and I was not the only one that came up with that idea. I was there with a lot of other of my friends. So
you have some tremendous parks. Gorgeous State Park, which is just over the North Carolina border. You have Caesar's Head. I mean, there's a lot of just going out to Jocassee Lake and sitting by in that sandy beach. There's some really creative ways to get in nature if you have the physical transportation, and I know that can be an obstacle for some people.
But I really can't thank you enough for sharing your programs and sharing your passion. It is so welcome, and it makes us all enthusiastic to see. I mean, you're obviously not in this for the money, you're in this for the giving, and you're making a huge difference. And you know, for the people who have been part of this because they're helping a patient that they knew as a friend, or people who've experienced their cancer, and still it's made them change their road, their travels to give back. I can't thank you enough for what you're doing, and I hope that this helps you grow. And again, to all those people who are listening, tell your friends and associates that this exists and something that you can do to learn about these programs. So thank you for being with us today. One of the things I just want to advertise is that we have a program in Greenville, and we'll show you the phone number, but it's called Prevent Cancer Greenville. It's a free program. It's all philanthropy driven. You see a nurse, soon-to-be nurse practitioner, yearly. They do it's kind of like your annual checkup, but they really are more emphasizing your cancer risk profile and things that we can do as far as lifestyle that perhaps will decrease that. It may be losing weight, it may be exercising more, it may be getting better sleep, it may be stopping smoking, it's stopping alcohol, getting more nature, decreasing your stress, and then so those are the deliverables. And we also have a non-invasive technique to look at your body composition, so you can see how that changes year to year, fat, bone, water, and muscle. So you can see how you change year to year. There is a research element to this where we draw blood and we take a sample of your buccal lining in your mouth and give a urine sample, and we put that in our biorepository, and we see how you change and how it might change your exposome, how your genome is interpreted as you change your lifestyle and get hopefully healthier. So this is the phone number. It's also the website as to how you can get involved. As you can imagine, we see a lot of white women in this study. We would like to have more diversity, including more men involved. So we probably have 800 participants right now, and they're coming back. Some are coming back for their 4th annual checkup. So it's just something that we can do. And what I normally end up with is some kind of word for the day, or a quote or a poem. We did talk about the forest bathing, and there is a Japanese term that was started in 1980. It's called Shinrin Yoku, and it's something that Japanese physicians can actually prescribe for their patients. So it's a prescription. You don't go to the CVS to get it, but you can go to Wind River and get it. And then I have this poem that was written by Mary Oliver, and it's called When I Am Among the Trees. When I am among the trees, especially the willows and the honey locusts, equally the beech, the oaks, and the pines, they give off such hints of gladness. I would almost say they save me. And daily, I am so distant from the hope of myself, in which I have goodness and discernment, and never hurry through the world, but walk slowly and bow often. Around the trees, stir in their leaves and call out, stay a while. The light flows from their branches and they call again. It's simple, they say, and you too have come into the world to do this, to go easy, to be filled with light and to shine. So we will have another episode of our Cancer Prevention and Wellness on October 13th. We'll have an exercise physiologist, Dr. Jennifer Trilk, and she'll be talking about all forms of exercise navigation, how you deal with exercise when you have other things that don't let you exercise the way, quote, normal people do. But from the standpoint of cancer, it's a really important thing because as you go through your treatment, you can become very deconditioned. And the way to get healthy again is by doing the exercise. So thank you all for your time and your energies. And we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Bye. Thanks.